Good evening, black people and all allies fighting for black liberation, black prosperity, and black joy. I'm Charles Blow, and welcome to Prime. Well, the post-Trump administration gaslighting and rehabilitation tour continues. This time, the Trump's Attorney General, Bill Barr, you know him. This is the guy who blatantly deceived the public about the Mueller report and defended the indefensible in Trump and propagated the lie that the election could be faulty. Yeah, that guy. He'd like us now to believe that in the final months of the Trump administration, even he had finally had it with Trump and his demands. There's a fat chance that we're going to believe that. In an interview published by The Atlantic, Barr said this about the Trump false election claims. My attitude was, it was put up or shut up time. If there was evidence of fraud, I had no motive to suppress it, but my suspicion all the way along was that there was nothing there. It was all bullshit. Now that's his word, not mine. But of course, it was BS. Much of the administration was, but anyway. Trump responded in a lengthy statement to that report and slammed Barr as a spineless rhino. And then there's Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, who are also trying to salvage their reputations and get more invites to New York City high society parties, no doubt. They would now like us to believe that suddenly they want nothing to do with Daddy. There was even a story on CNN about how they're supposedly distancing themselves from the president and his constant complaints. Sure, Jan. Guess what? Vanity Fair, others, me, we are not buying it. All that as New York prosecutors have reportedly met with Trump's lawyers today after giving them a Monday afternoon deadline to lay out their final arguments as to why the Trump organization should not face criminal charges. According to sources quoted in the Washington Post, the deadline seems to be a sign that Manhattan DA Cyrus Vance and New York Attorney General Letitia James are close to a decision. If the case does move ahead, DA Vance could reportedly announce charges as soon as this week or next week. And it's important to note, Cy Vance plans to retire at the end of the year. And who will replace him? Or who could replace him? It could be Alvin Bragg, the current frontrunner in the Manhattan District Attorney primary race. So the entire prosecution of Donald J. Trump could very well be led by a black man as Manhattan DA, a black woman as New York attorney, and in a city that might be run by a black mayor. The company of a white power president could fall under a surge of black political power in New York. The poetry of it is all just so exquisite. Joining me now to discuss all this and more is political science professor at Fordham University, Christina Greer, and Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author of The Making of Donald Trump, David Cay Johnson. Thank you both for joining me tonight.
Charles.
Glad to be here, Charles.
Thank you. First of all, Professor Greer, what do you make of the meeting today between the Trump organization and these prosecutors?
Well, we know that these things have taken time, and so I think a lot of people, the minute Donald Trump left office, wanted to see some movement. But we know that Letitia James, as the Attorney General of New York State, has been very methodical in thinking of ways to look into the Trump organizations and the Trump administration. And we know that Cy Vance, because he decided not to run for re-election, he's also been methodical about thinking about the Trump administration and various entities of Donald Trump within New York State, or in New York City more specifically. So it doesn't come as a surprise that these things are now slowly coming into the station. I think a lot of people wanted to see them immediately after Donald Trump left office, but we know after the January 6th insurrection, we had coronavirus and vaccination, widespread, trying to think about how to implement that. There are some other things that were sort of in the political imagination, but these are all items that have been on Cy Vance's mind. Interestingly enough, they did not dominate the Manhattan DA's race, where there were 8, very active and qualified candidates. There were much more local issues, but we definitely know if Al Bragg is the presumptive nominee, we still have, in that case, 25,000 outstanding absentee and affidavit ballots that still need to be counted, but it looks very good for Alvin Bragg. We know that this will come on his desk as well. And similarly with Eric Adams, we have about 120,000 outstanding absentee and affidavit ballots. Even though he's up by 100,000 votes from his 2 competitors, it looks good, but we're far from declaring Eric Adams or Alvin Bragg the winners just yet. So we still have to wait and see if you're going to get your trifecta of African-American powerhouses prosecuting Donald Trump.
So, David, based on what you know so far about this investigation, what kind of charges could we see, and what individuals, in addition to the Trump organization, might be charged?
Well, the initial indictment that we're going to see as early as tomorrow is designed to force Alan Weisselberg, who really runs the Trump organization, Donald doesn't run it, who writes the checks, authorizes payments, does Donald's dirty work, and has been doing it for Donald and his father for 40 years, to get him to flip. He has so far not been willing to flip, and prosecutors are giving him the law enforcement version prosecutorial style of an NYPD tune-up. If he doesn't want to cooperate, they're making it clear at 73 years old, he can expect to spend the rest of his life in prison. Now, the one thing we don't know that's really important is whether in this indictment or the second, the third, the fourth, however many it takes, they're going to include a state-level racketeering charge. The state of New York has a RICO law, very similar to the federal law. It requires showing 3 felonies, and finding 3 felonies in the Trump organization, Charles, is about as hard as finding a red light in Midtown Manhattan. So what I would expect tomorrow is Alan Weisselberg will be indicted. The Trump organization itself will be. And one of the things, if you work for Donald for a long time, and I've known Donald for now more than 33 years, you yourself have done things that are compromised. They have found crimes that Alan has committed for sure. And he's still, at the moment, holding fast to Donald Trump.
So it looks like we may have lost David's audio there. So, Professor Greer, I want to ask you this to follow up on what David was talking about there. If they're trying to flip Weisselberg, that is to get some bigger fish out of the deal. Can you imagine a scenario in which Trump, his children, or others in that, on that level could see a charge if Weisselberg agrees to cooperate and gives damning evidence? It would just be unprecedented, in American political life.
Right, it's unprecedented that we're having a conversation about the crimes of a former U.S. president so egregious. But I mean, as David has clearly laid out, what's been so fascinating is the number of people who have been in the Trump organization orbit who refuse to ever flip on Donald Trump. They pledged their loyalty to him. He runs his organization like some criminal enterprises. There's loyalty that regular people, law-abiding citizens fundamentally just can't understand. But we know that Donald Trump only cares about Donald Trump. So if that means selling his own children down the river, we know that he would be willing to do that. The interesting thing is the people who work for Donald Trump never seem to be willing to turn on him. So that will be interesting to see if Cy Vance and Letitia James can get various people in the inner circle of Donald Trump, people who worked for him for decades, to open up the books and start to show all of the criminal misdeeds that Donald Trump did, not just while he was the president, but definitely beforehand and possibly after. As far as his children are concerned, I mean, they knew what this was. We know that they made millions upon millions of dollars working for their father during the administration. They never had security clearance. They obviously didn't have the qualifications either. So they may try and distance themselves in the court of public opinion, but at the end of the day, the question remains, how much did they know and how involved were they, and Don Jr. and Eric and all of the miscellaneous Trump children and friends of the family.
So, David, last one to you. As Professor Greer pointed out, people who work for Donald Trump resist flipping on him. As you said, they're putting the screws on Weisselberg, but there were video of him, I think it was today or yesterday, still showing up at work like nothing is happening. And he has given every indication that he does not plan on flipping. Do you think that they can provide enough pressure in the sense of charging heavily enough that he may never see the light of day again, that he would eventually flip? Or is his allegiance to Trump stronger than that?
Well, when we see the charges, I can give you a better answer to that, Charles. But at the point, here's what I suspect you're going to see happen next. There will be an immediate effort to delay. That's been Donald Trump's legal strategy throughout his life. He outran 4 federal grand juries as a young man by just running out the clock. And they're going to make every effort to delay. If at some point Alan Weisselberg either is convicted or realizes, boy, he will be convicted, that's when prosecutors will have the pressure to say, well, here's your opportunity. You help us now. You tell us the truth of what happened and provide backup documentation. Or at age 73, you're going to get a prison sentence that will effectively be for life. And you're also going to see, as Christina touched upon, the family is going to scatter. They're not going to defend each other. Donald will put anybody in his family under the bus to protect himself because he doesn't have any normal human relationships. He doesn't understand love, affection. He's never had a day of joy in his life, and it's really very sad to understand what a deeply disturbed person he is because of the way his father abused him as a child, emotionally and mentally abused him.
Christina Greer and David Cay Johnson, thank you both for joining me tonight. Very illuminating.